Hello, it's Monday. It's Monday, so it's Makers Monday. I'm Patrick, your dispatcher and programmer here on the back end, and then we got, of course, it's Monday, so we got James. How you doing there, James?
I'm good. It's Monday, and we get to talk to another awesome guest. People who don't know, this is Maker Monday, where we talk every other Monday. We talk to makers around the community, sometimes at Matchbox or people who are members of Matchbox, like tonight, and sometimes people all over the world. So we can do this remotely like this. Kofi and I have been doing it for a while, and I'm down here at the Maker Space right now, but in the media studio, which is the same building, different room, we have David. So, David, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
So tell us about what you do, maker wise. Like we advertise a little bit, but in your own words, what do you do? What's David do?
Well, primarily I'm a mason, so I build really cool looking stuff out of bricks and block and cement and things like that. Um, Specialize mostly in fireplace, high efficiency fireplaces, and also do a little work with wood fired ovens. So you see them around; those are pretty cool. And then about a third of my work is restoration. Old buildings and old chimneys, a lot of old chimneys, do a lot of old chimneys, working on one right now. Um, but if it has to do with brick and stone and mortar, it's something I'm interested in and something I've got my hands in almost every day. That's what I do, basically.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the sculptures, if you will, that you make, and some of the I guess they're brick ovens. Really, is
Yeah.
what the ones that I've seen that like you make it sound like you're just like I'm laying brick. No, he's an artist. Like it really is. Some of the stuff that he's done is really art worthy. Um, that being said, how'd you get into it? Like what? How'd you start on what you do?
Well, it's a great question. About 15, 18 years ago, I say 20, but it isn't quite 20 yet. I was working in industry here, not too far north of here, Rensselaer, and I was looking for something that I could do on my own. And it's been a subject. The masonry has always been a interest of mine. I've done some small projects on my own. Uh, Helped a guy a number of years ago build an outdoor fireplace, and I found that really interesting and really gratifying when we got done. He did most of the work. I just helped, go get stuff, things like that. And so I started uh, getting this feeling I wanted to try to do something on my own, and I gravitated towards that. And at that time, there was a uh, older fella up in the Emonon area. Gene Austin is his name, and he really good mason, really good reputation, a lot of good work that he did back then, and still a lot of work out there that's got his name on it. And him and I hooked up together, and we worked together pretty closely for about 10 years, back and forth. He had jobs, I'd help him. I had jobs, he'd help me, and that's how I learned, kind of the old-fashioned way. Today, there's a lot of masons that come through the union, come through the different schools that are available. There's some trade schools. The local union has a good training center as well. So there's opportunities that way. Also, a lot of guys can just start working for a mason, and a lot of times you start out on the grunt side, running a shovel, moving sand, a lot of mud, carrying brick.
So that's what
Uh,
you
that,
did. You were an apprentice then, kind of, right?
I was an apprentice.
Right.
It was unique in that the very first day he said, "You start in that corner over there, and I'm starting over here, and we'll see if we meet in the middle or not." And I did not know what I was doing, but uh, I picked it up quick, and I made almost I think I've made every mistake there is to make, but some days I surprise myself still. And but yeah, it went, and it was a little bit of the old fashioned way, working for a mentor and I learned a tremendous amount from him. And then as time moved on, he slowed down, and I started learning new techniques and new things from other masons, and that's probably been the last 10 years. Um, my education's been more some formal classes and stuff like that that are offered through the industry, and then also connections that I've been able to make with a variety of characters from around the world. Really, that's been
So
really unique.
it really seems like you do a lot of unique sculptures. And do you do that by like learning? Oh, okay, this is a cool thing that I just learned. I'm going to try it this way. Or are you ever just kind of play around at this point? Or are you just like playing and like, hey, I think I can make this happen?
Um, well, it definitely started. I started branching out, and I will say that for me, the focus is almost always on fire. Probably 8 years ago, I built my own wood-fired oven, and that was something I had in the back of my mind for years. I wanted to build a wood-fired oven, and I would go on YouTube, I'd go on the internet and dig around looking for plans, and there was a lot of stuff, and there is still today a ton of stuff on there. And it just, as a bricklayer, the information I was picking up didn't make sense, and I would dig, and I said, boy, those, it looks cool, but some of that stuff, those guys don't know what they're doing. I can just see that guy's not a mason. He's making this up. And and that's not anything against experimenting and stuff like that. But
Right.
I knew as a mason, I was going to build a brick oven. I was going to build I wanted it to be right. I wanted to know what, the details. And in that search for good, accurate information, I came across the organization, and this shirt I'm wearing. Let's see there it is. I'm looking at the screen a little bit. Masonry Heater Association. A fun little story that that I experienced. I was out in Las Vegas. It was February. It was a great time to get out of Indiana, and I would go out to Las Vegas and look around at the World of Concrete. And the World of Concrete is just a demonstration of all things concrete, all things masonry, a whole big convention center building full of masonry tools and equipment and businesses focused on the masonry end of construction. And while I was out there, I came across a group that were building brick by brick, a brick oven right out in the parking lot in Las Vegas, downtown Las Vegas. And it was interesting because I came across the oven at right around lunchtime, and nobody was there. But the familiar dome shape that you might recognize anywhere in the world, and the tools I could see, and I thought maybe I found some guys that know what they're doing. And so we moved on. My son and I were walking around. He was taking a break from college, and then we went back about an hour later, and of course they were back from lunch. And we got talking, and I don't know what else was demonstrated and on display that year out in Las Vegas, but I learned everything I needed to know about, well, not everything, but I learned an awful lot about building a brick oven. And the other thing that I made was some friendships. I met some guys that are a lot like me. Been doing masonry for a while, some of them all their life, some of them not all their life, but and they had found a niche in building appliances that contain fire, whether it's a fireplace, a masonry heater, a wood-fired oven. And those guys had made a niche in their business. Wasn't necessarily completely dedicated to that, but it was definitely a big part of their business. And they invited me to come in and observe the process of building that oven. And then later I got invited to the annual meeting of the Masonry Heater Association. And it was interesting because my son and I had walked around all over Vegas that 3 days together, looking at all different kind of things. And he had to fly back to college. He had to go back to Kansas to finish his senior year in college. And he said, you know, those guys keep telling you they want you to come out to their annual meeting. It's in North Carolina. It's on a mountaintop called Wild Acres. It's kind of a unique place.
Yeah.
And he said, I think you should go do that. And I said, well, you know, all I really want to know is how to build an oven. And they've given me plans, and I even got some guys' phone numbers I can call if I got questions. I said, I really think I got all I need. I said, I just want to build an oven. And my son looked at me and he said, no, Dad, he said, those guys are just as weird as you are. That's your kind of people.
Yeah,
And
so you found your people. Yeah.
And I tell you what, that was in February, and in April, I went to North Carolina and spent a week in the mountains learning how to build high efficiency fireplaces, and it's called a masonry heater. What's a masonry heater? Well, it's a fireplace that works. If you're familiar with fireplaces, they're not always they look great and they love to have the fire, but they oftentimes are not so great for heating the house. You know, they kind of cool the house off. I like to say they're the best air conditioner you can buy for the winter time. But so I spent a week in North Carolina learning the details, and I've been going back ever since. Matter of fact, I'm a board member of the association, and but that is the focus, and it's my passion. I travel worldwide to put these together. I collaborate with different other masons that are in on it, doing this, and I do plenty on my own here locally. State of Indiana, I've got a number of projects going in Pennsylvania, and I've been to Japan. I've been down to Guatemala to do something similar, but on a different scale. And it's really been, I guess, not a 90-degree turn, but a change from doing general construction masonry into something. And what I found is when we took the brick and we added the fire, I turned into a little kid. Because don't play with fire. Don't ever play with fire. Okay, but if you're safe with it and you surround that fire with a lot of brick, you can build some pretty awesome fire. I mean, we're talking 2,500 degree temperatures. I've actually watched a kid play with fire and melt a fire brick. And if you know anything about fire brick, that's about 2,500 degrees. And people tell you, well, you can't get a wood fire to get that hot. Well, if you know what you're doing, you can. And if you play around with it safely, you can learn an awful lot. And that's what I've been doing really for the last 8 years is building fireboxes and playing around, seeing how hot and how furious we can burn wood. And along the way, we do find ways to cook food and keep houses warm and keep people safe. And that's been a real change in my business, but it's also connected with me personally, just who I am. So,
yeah, sounds like you found your people, right? Now you found your niche, right?
Yeah,
you're going all over the world for this thing.
Yeah,
I have so many questions. We have a couple like common questions I really want to go to.
Sure, go ahead. Go right ahead.
So typically, we have all kinds of different makers on here. You're the first brick mason and like fire guy, like real true, like let's make some fire with some bricks and let's go. So one of the things we always ask people is, what's some of the favorite tools that you use? It doesn't have to be your favorite exact tool, but some tools. Actually, let's be honest. What's the one that you just can't live without? Right, the one tool.
Well, I'm a mason, so I got to say a trowel.
Okay.
We use that. We use it for a hammer. We use it for to flip the burgers on a fire. We use it to stoke the fire. We cut brick. We use it. It's basically attached to your hand all day long. And I got a little. I don't know if it's carpal tunnel syndrome or whatever it is in this knuckle right here, just from that grip. That all day. That's what I do. But there's a lot of tools, and I just bought a new tool this spring in April, and I never thought I'd ever buy. I thought it looked to me like it was something that wasn't useful for me, and boy, was I wrong. And it goes on every job, and it's just a real simple battery operated cutoff saw. It's not huge, it's not heavy, I didn't think it had enough power. I seen guys using them. I thought it was, oh man, I don't know how that fits in this industry. We do a lot of heavy. I mean, it's heavy industry. You just go right down the street here, and they're laying block every day, and they're using cranes and big forklifts, and it's heavy. Everything we do is heavy. It's hard. It's a tough industry, but that tool, it makes a huge difference, and I'm a believer. So,
do you know what kind of tool it was exactly? You said it was a
yeah,
saw?
yeah, absolutely. It's a cutoff saw. So it's a Milwaukee battery operated cutoff saw. You see the gas ones. A real common one is a steel gas powered saw. A lot of them have a 14-inch blade. You kind of hook a hose to it up, keeps the dust down. You can cut a big stone, a brick, or whatever you need to cut. The beauty of the battery operated saw is you don't have to pull that engine and get it to start. And, when they're brand new, they start right up. But then, after a few years and they've been sitting around and breathing a lot of dust, well, then it's pull till it finally starts. And then you're wondering you wear your arm out before you ever get started. So the battery operated, that for me, and I use a battery operated grinder with the same diamond blade on them too. Those are two more current new saws, new equipment and tools that we use. And you'll find them on every job site. But it's an ancient skill, and it's an ancient trade. I mean, we like to say it's the second oldest trade in the world. And there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, when the guys started figuring out they could stack one stone on top of the other and make a wall, well, hey, that was pretty important. You could make a little protection. You could make a little area, a fort or whatever that protected you from animals and from enemy. And so that ability to make a barrier was pretty important from beginning times. And you can see, just look out the window, you can see it's still going on today.
Yeah, I mean, behind you, there's a brick wall, right? It's perfect.
Yeah, there we go, right here. Yeah. It's not the greatest example, but it's a good one.
But you can repair our walls for us if you want, right?
We talked about
do a lot of repair work too, right?
Yes, I do, and I that is another thing that I'm very passionate about. The brick in the fire is I don't have to get you're gonna have to cut me off because I'll talk forever about this. Just ask my friends, ask my boys. Everybody, hey, well, you don't get him started because you can't get him stopped. But the other thing I really do have a passion for is these old buildings, and this building right here is a great example of it. It's been repurposed. Used to be something else. Used to be a garage and a mechanic shop, and they fix cars. And now it's an office space for a bunch of people, myself included. And I love using the Matchbox space here, and I love the way it lays out and the openness of it. But originally, this brick and mortar building had a different function, and it would have been real easy for it to get, when it sat here for quite a while, and get torn down by the wrecking ball. But it wasn't because it wasn't a functional building. It wasn't because it was falling apart. It would have been because of different plans. And we see that just across the street a little bit. They tore some pretty nice buildings down for the next, in this case, there's a police station going in, a hotel going in across the street, different places.
Yeah.
But masonry is unique in that you will find the oldest buildings anywhere in the world are built out of masonry. And if they're built properly and they're maintained properly, they will last for centuries. We don't have a building material today, none of the new stuff even begins to talk about lasting for a century. 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, 50 years, maybe. A century, 2 centuries, 3 centuries.
Yeah.
How old are the pyramids? How old are and so that's the other thing. I love those old buildings, and if we can work on them and learn the methods that they use to build them, we can maintain them and keep them and use them just like this building here for new use, adaptive use, and don't always have to tear down and start over. And so there's a place. Go ahead.
That brings me to a whole other question. So out of all the different types of masonry that you have that have been out or that are out there, which one would you say is like the most intriguing to you, like your favorite or the one that you're all about?
So what you see here is a brick and mortar. and they work together. So some people say the mortar holds it together, and some people say mortar holds it apart. They're both right, but together that's a system. And this wall is a couple brick thick, probably 3, maybe 4, and it creates a barrier and creates an environment in here that we can be comfortable, whether it's raining outside or snowing or anything. It can be comfortable. There is a form of masonry that does not use mortar. That's called dry stack or dry stack stone. And to me, that is the ultimate in craftsmanship and a unique kind of labor and effort that is mind-boggling. These brick are not all perfectly the same size, and so the mortar allows us to stack them in a consistent level pattern, and we just keep going up. We call it raising the line. And we keep raising the line. Eventually we get to the top of the building and we got 4 walls, put a roof on, that kind of thing. Well, the mortar allows them imperfections in the brick or the block or the stone or whatever it is to still fit together and stay together and function as a wall. And sure, the dry stack and the drystone work is done without mortar.
So is there any example of a dry stack that we would know of?
Well, so in South America, I'm not going to get the name exactly right. It's something Pichu, Iro Pichu, or something like that. I don't have the exact pronunciation, and it's ancient. They don't know exactly, thousands of years old, and they formed those stones together so tight you couldn't slip a business card or nobody does business cards anymore. Credit card, let's say that. Okay, you can't slip a credit card in there. Some of the ancient buildings in Greece, the Parthenon and that, those pillars that are stacked together, those are 2-3 foot tall stone. They milled them by hand until they were perfectly fit together. And so when you see a column and it looks like one piece of stone, that's not one piece of stone. That's 12, 13 of a 15, whatever, stacked together. And the masons carved those stone perfectly until they were seamless. You couldn't even see the joint. And to me, that's another level of craftsmanship and another level of skill that it still exists today, but it's unique. And the guys that do that, they're one tough turkey. Be careful what I say, but those guys are tough. I did a project this spring out in Santa Fe, and it was a dry stack stone. And we started with stones that weighed about between 1 and 2 ton, and we split them and we cut them, and we did most of it by hand. We had a little bit of electric drill, and we did feather and wedge splitting, and then we would chisel with hammer and chisel to get that stone, and it was a circular structure. And in the Midwest, we might call it a silo. Out there, it was called a Tourion, and it was a traditional. Traditionally, it was built out in the desert. They would stack a group of stones together in a circular pattern and make a little silo or a little monument, and maybe 10, 15 feet tall. And they could use the inside of that for storage, for food or that kind of. And on the outside, they'd stand and look and watch and see as people approached. So it was a lookout tower. And we built I was part of a group that built a replica of one of those this spring to commemorate and to identify where a group of indigenous population lived for 400 or 500. That population lived for about 400 or 500 years in Santa Fe area, and so this was just a memorial Tourion to remember that. But that was the practice to build it with dry stack stone, and so I actually participated in that for a couple of weeks building the base, and it's very challenging. Really feels like you're going to work at it forever, but it is incredible, and it uses the most reliable force in the world, and that's gravity, to hold it together. And if you build it properly and you know what you're doing, you can build those that can stand for thousands. We've got examples that are several thousand years old. You know, when we think about the pyramids, they're dry stacked.
Exactly.
They don't have mortar. Yeah. Now, granted, they're kind of in a triangular pattern, so that helps too.
Yeah,
but,
they cheated and made it in a triangular pattern.
Yeah.
Man, I can't
But-
believe.
So that is for
Right,
me.
exactly.
That for me is the ultimate in stonework in itself is a challenge. Yeah. When you're laying brick, I'm not going to make a fun out of bricklayers, but my mentor used to say a 3-year-old can lay brick because he can't, and he's not. That's not accurate, but it's you know, you let a 3-year-old play with blocks. You know, we all did, probably every one of us, and we learned how to stack them up. You know,
Sure.
and that's kind of, and so brick it can be easy, you know, and the challenge is to get it to be consistent and perfect every time because you got nice square units. So that's a challenge because you got to tip up, tip down, in or out. You can tell a good mason versus one that's just getting going and learning because you see the inconsistency in their brickwork. Stone, it takes a little more imagination. Some guys gravitate to stone really quickly. I probably gravitate to stone a little more so than brickwork. I do both, but I get a lot more satisfaction at the end of the day when I've laid stonework because yes, it takes a little. You have to think a little differently. Your mind has to go somewhere different as you start stacking them up and still follow the principles of good craftsmanship and good building.
So I just realized that I had forgot to say this earlier, but where can we find your work, and or where can we like if somebody wants to hire you to make a super hot brick oven in town? I know you made a few of them, and not even in town, all over the world. Where can we go to do that?
So you can find my work around town, around Lafayette. A lot of it is repair work. And I can, you know, I'd be happy to share locations. One place that I'm really proud of, and it's real close to here, is the Spot Tavern, just 3-4 blocks away. And if you go out back on the patio, even now the weather's turned a little bit cooler, but they have a super hot pizza oven in the back, and we put that together this spring. And that was
awesome.
That was a great project that really came together nicely. A lot of challenges. We had a 12-inch snow that started the project out, but we worked through it and we got through it, and that thing is throwing out pizzas every weekend and through the week, even some too. And anybody is welcome to come in there and you grab a beer at the bar, or if you're not into that, you just walk out back and grab a pizza. And they're doing the Snugs Pizza crew is putting out some really, I think it's some of the best pizza in Lafayette, if not Indiana. I'll give them a plug right now because they're doing a great job. But also, I've got a website, DK and Sons, and I know you had trouble logging into it a couple weeks ago, but it is active, and I'm in the process of just talked to a web developer today to update it. So, and then you can find me also on social media under Dave Zeltwanger. You can find me on Instagram, DK and Sons, and you can also find me as DZM, Dave Zeltwanger Masonry. So
awesome. So people are finding you all over the world, really, right? And is this mostly like most of the time are people just saying, "Hey, you gotta meet my guy Dave," right? Or David?
Yeah, David.
David, sorry.
Just don't call me late for lunch. I don't care. But through the Masonry Heater Association, it's an international. It represents the North American masons that build heaters, but there's a fairly significant contingent of members that are international. And so when I built the heater in Japan, it was a member of the Heater Association from Japan, lives in Tokyo. His name's Aki Yoshimizu is his full name. And he called and said, "Hey, I'm doing a project," and he needed a hand, and he wondered if I be interested. And I thought about it for about 30 minutes. I said, "You know what? Sign me up." I've never been to Japan, and I spent about 3 weeks over there putting together a masonry heater and that. So yeah, that word of mouth. We do some advertising. I do some advertising. A masonry heater, people don't know what they are. It's not a common appliance. You won't find it in the magazines when you're looking at different building a house, or if you're looking online, you kind of got to dig around. I find my best customers are the ones that have read an article about a masonry heater and want to know more, want to know why they're better than a fireplace. And then when we get into that and start talking about what the advantages are, then they really get interested. The whole concept of burning wood to keep your house warm, that's kind of old fashioned. And not everybody's all excited about it. They're like, well, wait a minute, there's some pollution issues. We can't cut down all the trees. We don't want, and that's all true. But let's face it, not all of us want to sit and cut wood and split wood, and we all want to enjoy a fire. I found that's pretty universal. Very few people don't enjoy a fire. But when it comes to splitting the wood and carrying it in and all that, so, wait, I'm busy. I got something better to do. So a lot of us, we like to have that remote control or the thermostat on the wall, and it just turns on the heater and we don't even think about it. That's great. But there's a population out there in Indiana and all the states across the northern and anywhere it's cold that will heat with wood. And a masonry heater is a great solution for that person. You got wood stoves out there, you got fireplaces, a lot of different pellet stoves, a lot of different ways to heat with wood. And we feel masonry heater is the best option for that. But and that's how we get word of mouth. People hear about it, they read about it, they find out about the efficiencies of them, and then they want to see if they can include it in their new building. Or we've done some remodeling where they had an existing fireplace and they weren't using it. That's a very common, one of the most common experiences. Yeah, I got a fireplace, we never use it. Maybe at Christmas, but we get the house freezes out after we use it. I'm not interested in, and hear that all the time, and it doesn't have to be that way. And that's what the concept of a masonry heater is, that when you burn the wood, we have a saying we like to use, is that we don't leave any BTU behind. So no BTUs are left behind. We cut down on the pollution, we cut down on the amount of wood you use, and we increase the amount of heat you get in the house. And all those things are win-win. And that's kind of the thrust of building masonry heaters, which is the thrust of what I do.
Yeah, that's so. Would you rather build, I guess, pizza ovens and like fire ovens, or heaters for houses?
I'd rather build both. It's a lot of fun to work with a home builder, and they're building a new house, and it's 40% of the houses built today have a fireplace in them. That's a very popular feature. New houses today, 40% have a fireplace in it. Now, granted, 90% of those fireplaces are gas log or some form of, hey, just turn it on, enjoy it, and when you're done, turn it off and forget about it. And I get that. That's the majority of people. That's what they want for a fire. They just want a little flame, set the mood, a little heat, no big deal. Go to bed at night, it's all over. But then some of those fireplaces are a masonry fireplace. And the challenge is, they're not efficient. And so masonry heaters are basically a masonry fireplace, but we made them efficient. And we made it where we're not all those BTUs plus all the other BTUs in the house aren't going up the flue anymore. We're keeping them in the house. And when we do that, the customer then, like, every night they can have a fire and reduce their heating bill. Well, now they're motivated. So that you don't even have to join the gym anymore. You can stay at home and work, cut up wood, have it all ready. And then in the winter, when the snow's flying, a nice warm fire. Hey, turn on the TV. Yeah. What's on there? That's nothing to watch on TV. Turn the TV off and watch the fire. I mean, that's entertainment.
Everybody loves a good fire, like you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that really consistent with the ovens as well. So wood-fired oven, if someone puts it in the backyard, almost everybody in a household's interested in some portion of that event. They're either interested in the building of it, or they're interested in the pizza. I mean, who doesn't love pizza? And that comes out. You've been there, you've tasted. One of these days, we're going to get that. We're going to get my oven in here, and we're going to do a pizza event here at the Matchbox. I keep
Yeah.
telling Amanda we're going to do that, and I don't know, I think she rolls her eyes, but one of these days it's going to happen. And but then some people are all about getting the wood around, and some are all about cooking. But it's a gathering. I love the function of how a wood-fired oven changes the atmosphere. People gather around. They want to know how it works. They want to see it in action. They want to taste the food that comes out. It's not just for pizza. You can do cookies and pies and bakery and you name it. You can do a roast. You can smoke a loin or a brisket, all kinds of stuff. And people get into that, and they're interested. And I think it goes back to that fundamental. Our forefathers and our go way back when the fire was lit at the end of the day, whatever the day consisted of, out chasing animals or gathering food or whatever it was. Eventually, at the end of the day, you came to the fire and you sat down and you relaxed, and it was safe and it was comfortable. And that same feeling we get, whether it's just a fire in a fireplace or if it's a wood-fired oven and we're cooking with it, is it draws people together, and it gets us to talk, and it gets us to reconnect.
Yes.
And in this day and age of internet, and you're in that room over there, and Patrick's right over there. I can almost see him if he leans over. I can see his face. But so we're separated. But I tell you what, if we had fire going, we'd be around the fire talking. It'd be. Sure. There's a reason the president does those fireside chats, because people like to see that, and it is no different. You build a fire. People come around, and I just built one yesterday. Just burned a pile of brush yesterday. The next thing you know, we're cooking hot dogs and having a nice little cookout. It wasn't planned at all, just impromptu. And that's the fundamental thing about having a wood fire. And no, we can't cut down every tree. Okay, there's a whole environmental thing we got to pay attention to. But just stop and think about this. I love this concept. The sunshine came and it landed on those tree leaves, and as tree leaves converted that into wood that made the tree grow. And I used to know all that stuff at one time. I graduated Purdue with a science degree, but I don't remember any of it. But that tree grew until finally it died, whatever, cut down for whatever, it died or whatever.
Yep.
And then we cut it up into wood and we put it on a fire. And what are we doing? We're recycling sunshine from 100 years ago. Now you think about that. And we can get all nervous, though. We don't want to cut down every tree. Absolutely not. We want to plant more trees and have a lot more trees to grow. But if we burn that wood carefully and hot enough, we don't put off any more carbon dioxide burning the wood as it would if it laid in the forest and decayed. And so environmentally, we can be sensitive in how we burn our wood, and we can recycle that sunshine that landed on the earth 100 years ago. And wood is one of those products that we can recycle responsibly in this fashion and get that sunshine back from 100 years ago. And I think that's a really cool concept. I love that concept of responsibly burning wood and enjoying the heat from the sun from 100 years ago. And so that's just
anytime you can recycle like
anything.
That, no, I mean anything you can recycle like that, and you can actually enjoy yourself around the fire, cook food. I mean, honestly, Kofi, have you ever cooked with one of these?
I have.
You have. So like you're a cook, it's enjoyable then, right?
Oh yeah, it's great. And plus, we're from Indiana, and we like burning stuff and shooting stuff. So it's like,
I mean,
he's right. He's 100% right.
Yeah. So I mean, speaking of, I'm hungry. Like literally, I'm ready to get on the spot and get a pizza like after this. I kind of want to, but So let me skip gears a little bit here. Okay, so we have again a whole lot of questions I want to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I get going. You can't stop me. So
you can tell how passionate you are, and I love hearing what people, what your phrases are and your sayings are, and all those things too. So yeah, I want you to go. It's about storytelling, but more to that storytelling point. So, what's one of the worst experiences you've had building one of these things? Like, tell me about a disaster story and maybe how it happened, or how you got past it.
Boy, you hate to. I'll say this: um, building a masonry heater or building anything out of masonry, first of all, one of the things that draws me to it is you got to think about it before you get started. You don't just say, well, I'm going to start stacking some brick up and we'll see what happens. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. It's going to fall over. You know what I mean? You got to start, what are we going to build and what's it going to look like? Because you got to start, the old thing, get a good foundation. You got to have a good foundation to start with. So before we do anything, we plan what are we building? But I'll tell you, the best laid plans, they don't always go the way you think you're going to go. I can't, there's been challenges. There's been times, just like this early this spring, actually winter in February, when Kat and Paul came to me and said, we want to put an oven up at Spot. And we talked about it for a couple of years, and I didn't know how serious they were, but they come over to my office in the warehouse here, just 3-4 blocks away, and they were serious. We want to do that this winter, and it was already February, and I'm like, well, what do you mean this winter? I mean, we got to get on, we got to start. And Kat looked at me in the eye, and she said, well, what do I need to do? Because I said, I can't do that all myself. I said, it takes planning, and she said, I'm here. I'm gonna organize this, whatever we need for volunteers. We're gonna find people to help. We're going to get it done. And I said, okay, well, here's what we need. And we started making a list. And I'm telling you what, that woman now, she knows how to get people around. And I had a project going on, and they were cutting a brick, getting things ready. And so I guess what I'm saying, it wasn't a disaster at all. It was a challenge because we woke up that morning to start building the dome. We'd already done the foundation work. We'd already had a plan. We had exactly what we were going to build. There's 12 inches of snow on the ground, and we're building this thing outside. But we'd built a tent a couple weeks before. We built a tent, had the heaters going. But you guys remember February when we got that, I think it was early March. No, it was still February. And we had it was 12 inches of snow. And the night before at midnight, I was out there poking the tent and knocking the snow off because it was already that deep. I was afraid I would wake up in the morning, the whole thing had collapsed. And
totally.
But it was still, and I knocked it all off at midnight, and by morning it was that deep. And Kat couldn't even get out of her house; she was stuck in her house. And I sent my helper over to get her out with my snowplow, and we started building that. So what I'm saying is, there's always challenges. The worst experience is something happens like 12 inches of snow you're not planning on. That weekend before the 12 inches, it was 20 below. You can't lay brick when it's 20 below. You can't lay brick when it's 20 above. It's got to be warmer than that. So we had planned and built the tent, and we had the heaters going. And so things were warmed up. But you have to have contingency plans. And I don't know what the contingency plan is for 12 inches of snow, but we were ready to go.
I think you got it. I mean, you did it, right?
We by the end of the day, we had the base done and the first couple courses done. And the third day, we had a dome and we had a fire by the end of the week. And by the end of the week, we had 12 inches in the middle. And by the end of the week, it was 20 below again. But we worked through it. So the worst, I guess that's not the worst experience I've had, but there's always challenges. And it really comes down to your mindset. Are we going to do this? And you got a schedule. You make a schedule. Sometimes you have to adjust. You know how that is. But I've never had to walk away and say this can't be done. That's not in my vocabulary, and I hope it never gets to be my vocabulary. I kind of pride myself in taking jobs that other guys say I don't want to do that. It can't be done. I've done a number of them where different contractors bid on it, and they either say I won't bid at all, or they give a number that's just outrageous. Right. And that's one of the things that I feel like I do just a little different is I look at it. If I don't tackle these big high rises that are going up, you won't see me over there. That's not my thing. It's a whole different thing. But there's a chimney over here on 9th Street that 2 different chimney sweeps wouldn't even look at it. They said, we can't get to it. It's too tall for us. And they called me and I looked at it and I said, it's going to be a bugger. It's going to be a challenge. And I just finished it today. And so disasters. Oh yeah, I've done some pretty stupid stuff. But you know what, my
No,
brain,
that's great to hear. Like you're that mentality of come up with a good plan, make it work, have it work. It seems like you're good at what you do too, right? So that's the thing. That's why people keep calling you, right?
I like to think that I like to take on the jobs that, like that chimney. As soon as he said no, but the other guys wouldn't do it. Well, then I was interested and they do that. As a matter of fact, I'm not picking on them, but they do that. If they get one they don't like, and it's going to be a lot of work. They don't want to do it, especially with a lot of masonry. So those guys, they're really good at cleaning and inspecting chimneys and that. They're not great masons, and so when it has to be rebuilt, they can do it. If it's a small one, they'll do it themselves. But when it gets to be a big one, they like to get somebody that's a mason. And so a lot of times I do work cooperatively with guys like that. It's because they'll fix the internal part of it, and then they'll let me do the brickwork on the outside. But that is part of what makes me tick, is doing jobs that are different, that are hard, that are unique. Can we put a fireplace in this area? And it looks like, well, I don't know if we should do that or not. I'd love in a matchbox. I've been dreaming of building a fireplace, a masonry heater, not a fireplace, a masonry heater with a bake oven, right out in the middle.
Have the bake oven.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
But right in the middle, you just think about that. You think it's a great place already. It's a unique place, but I think that'd be a nice addition. We'll work on Jason.
We talked about you mentioned before about bringing your oven down. So do you have like a portable oven of some sort?
Yeah, I do. And I built that a couple of years ago. I've had a couple of them. I built one and then decided I needed to refine it and make it a little better. I've got another one. Now I'm on my design in the next one. I already got the trailer picked out, but I do have one on a trailer, and it's pretty mobile. I've had it all over Indiana. I had it clear up to Lake Michigan down to had it right down in the shadow of Lucas Oil Stadium, and it gets around. And it's pretty convenient for that purposes, and cooks pizzas or whatever just as well as anything else. And absolutely, we need to get that in here and have a good old-fashioned pizza party.
We're named Matchbox. That's fire. We have Kofi.
Perfect.
Cook really well. I don't understand why this isn't a thing.
It seems like kind of seems like a match made in heaven, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, let's go. Let's see. I like pizza. I can eat the pizza. You can pull your it was perfect. Like you said, there's a lot of that bonding that can go on around the fire, and honestly, I want to go into some of the typical questions. So, time machine question. You haven't seen this before. I don't know. I don't know if you watched this or not, but if you had a time machine, what would David go back and tell past David? What's something that past David needed to hear when you were getting into this, or just anything?
I started when I was 40, and I would go back at 20 and say, going to Purdue is a great idea, but getting an education in masonry or construction, whatever, would have been more true to my heart. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but, and I think today kids get this, well, you're a loser if you aren't going to college. And I get that. I'm not against education. Don't get me wrong. I think everybody should get an education. And I'm not talking about reading, writing, arithmetic, all that, and whatever else they teach now. I don't even know. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an education in how to do things. And there's a certain percentage of us, and I'm definitely one of them. I didn't know it, but I wasn't meant to be sitting behind this desk. I'll sit here for about an hour and then I get fidgety. And then I'm, pretty soon I'm like, okay, what if I push it? What happens? You get nervous. All of a sudden I'm doing, what the heck's he doing in there? I'm meant to make things, put my hands on it and be real. I get dirty every day. I just came off the top of the chimney. An hour ago, I was up on the top of the chimney on 9th Street. That's me. And there's a lot of kids today that's who they are. But all they hear is, if you don't go to college, you're going to be stupid. And they go to college and they borrow money they don't have, and get an education in something they don't want to know about, and then they go look for a job that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And we've gone far too long with that mentality that if you're a blue collar worker, you're stupid. And I'm telling you, there's room, there's electricians, there's carpenters, there's welders, there's mechanics, there's masons, there's all those things. And there's room for all kind of guys and women. It's not a man thing at all. To get their hands dirty and find that's what their passion is. And you know what? You don't have to pay to go to those schools. They pay you to go to school.
Yeah.
They pay you to come to study in a classroom and then go out and work. You know, Mitch Daniels, he can say all he wants about he's cutting cost of education. Well, when he starts paying students to go to Purdue, I'll pay attention. In the meantime, we got guys and we got businesses and we got unions and we got all kinds of places where they pay you to come to school and learn a trade.
For sure,
And
because it's definitely needed, right?
That discourse needs to change. Their blue collars is that we need our plumbers, we need the water, we need the poop to go downhill and the water to go uphill, and we need somebody to figure that out. And
it's pretty common too that there's, I mean, when I was growing up, right, my parents, everybody was, you got to go to college, you're going to go to college. Like there wasn't that option. Right. And now I feel like it might be, I'm going to raise my kids like you can go to college, right? Like if that's what you want to do. If you want to be a scientist, then be a scientist, and you need to go to college for that. But if you want to do, you know, you want to make stuff, I got a college education, I got a master's degree, and I'm working in a makerspace, which was helpful, but I can learn how to 3D print on my own, right? And I can do a lot of the things that I do here, learning how to prototype things on my own. So I totally understand what you're saying. I do think though that it's like a cyclical thing, right? Where like all the parents are like, "Oh, you got to go to college. Oh, wait, now you don't have to go to college. Now you have to go to college." Like, right? So it might go back and forth, and it's kind of, we as parents at least are always trying to do the thing that would have been, that we wish we would have done, right, to make our lives perfect, and or not perfect, but like better. And I feel like that's what my parents did when they were like, "Hey, you need to go to college," right? Because they both actually did go to college, but before that. So it's rough, but you're very right. So anybody out there watching or wondering, I mean, trade schools, they can't get enough people in there. And it's, I mean, they pay really, really well, and they're expensive. I mean, not expensive, but it's, you get like a very good, extensive training. A lot of them do, apprenticeships and things like that, where you get actual on-the-job training. That was one of the things that always blew my mind when I went to college. I would think, okay, well, cool. When am I going to get to on-the-job training? And it never kind of happened, right? I always got the whole like concepts behind things. And college is great too. You learn a lot, but I understand. I totally get what you're saying, for sure. And I see a lot of people too that come in the makerspace and they are like, well, my education's in communications, or my education's in something that doesn't have to do with this, but this is my passion. This is what I really like to do. Right. And I was, one of the normal questions is like, hey, what's one of your fandoms? But David, I feel like your fandom is bricklaying and masonry. Do you like, this seems like something that you're all about, but what other kind of fandoms do you have? What else are you into?
With the wood-fired oven, I do a fair amount of cooking, and I really enjoy that. Playing around with that. It's something I get a lot of satisfaction at. I like to eat. You kind of tell I've got a little bit of going on down here. So I do a little bit of that. I'm part of an organization that it's called Masons on a Mission, and we put stoves, little wood-fired cooking stoves in little huts in Guatemala. And that's something it's really connected because it's masonry and it's heating with wood and it's cooking with wood, but it's a different aspect when you go into a little shack that probably as big as a kitchen table in most of our houses, and that's their whole home. That's where they live. And they got it in the center of that table in that area, they got to open fire, and they heat the room and they cook on that open fire. But there's 4 walls and a roof, so there's nowhere for the smoke to go. It's like standing in the middle of a smokestack, and your eyes start burning. You're not in there 2 minutes, and your eyes are just killing you. And here they live in that, and it's in the mountains, and so it gets cold at night, and it's a tough environment. And there's a program to go in those and replace those open fires with an enclosed stove with a chimney that leads outside. And to me, so it's kind of connected, but I got a real passion for that. And that's, third world countries, it's not just Guatemala. There's anywhere where they have a temperature, they're still cooking. A 3-stone fire is still very, very common. And that's what they use for heat, and they cook. And when that's inside, the environment inside that area is not conducive for living at all. And there's a number of organizations, Masons on Mission is one of them, that tries to address that need and get that smoke out of the living quarters. And so, it's connected, but it's that's making a difference in a totally different way than what we do here. You get down there and you see the conditions they live in, and some of the rough areas of town we get into, and that's unique. So it's definitely a passion of mine there. I do some cooking. I like to read. I like to read, and I like to travel. I love it when my travel combines with my work, because I think that's the best. I'm not great at. I can sit on the beach. I love to sit on the beach, watch the sun come up, watch the sun go down, watch the surf come in. I love all that. Don't get me wrong. I can sit in the sun for hours. I love it. But but it's really fun to work like I did in Japan. We worked all day, but then at night we'd go out, grab a bite to eat, have a little fun, check out the community, and I got to see the Sea of Japan and on the beach out there. So that I really do enjoy when my my trade and my profession connects with my want to travel, and I get to go see some really cool things. So I've been very fortunate with that.
That is, the dream, right? To get paid to travel around, which is awesome. Yeah. Right. And we do have a question. We're coming kind of low on time, but
that's I understand.
Dave Braun makes amazing stuff too. I feel like you two would get along if you knew each other. What are your thoughts on the 3D printed concrete homes?
I think that the future's got some really cool things in store for us. There's a number of applications on that, and some really unique connections to some really cool historical structures that, with the ability to 3D print, we can almost mimic that design and that style that we haven't done for 100 years here anywhere in the world. We stopped doing some of those arches, the Catalayan arch, Guastavino built arches in the early 1900s that you can find today all around the world, all around the country of the United States, and then all around the world. And they're phenomenal. They're an engineering miracle. But the ability and the skill has been lost. We don't know how they do that. We don't know how they did that then, and we don't have a real hard to replicate it now. But the 3D printing gives us that opportunity to use some of those shapes. Turns out they're very efficient. How they handle forces and how they redirect that force to the ground is extremely efficient. The material use is way low. So it fits with the agenda of today of recycling and using less material to build really cool structures. And so I think it's just a matter of time till we figure out how to put those two together. And I'm excited for the future on that.
Yeah, I'm super excited about 3D printing, and especially 3D printing concrete homes or 3D printing concrete shop. I want to shop. Super. Exactly. I am you when you find out when that's coming to town, you let me know. We buy a plot of land and 3D print a shop. That's actually on my list.
It's probably coming faster than you realize. So
I want that, and I also love the fact that you were just mentioning, 3D scanning old buildings. We actually talked to somebody else about that on this show, and it's just fun because all of the different ways of making 3D printing. Thank you, David, for bringing this up. 3D printing, masonry work, stone work. I mean, all sorts of different things. They all kind of intertwine and they can work together, right? So as like artificial intelligence gets better, masonry will get better, right? And that's
Absolutely. It
crazy.
feels like it's old technology, and it is. There's a
Yeah.
lot of ancient things, but we can marry those two together. Thermal mass is a real thing, and there's technology to take advantage of that. And that's what a pizza oven really is. It's a big thermal mass that gets going in one direction, keeps going. But I don't think there's any question that technology will enhance the beauty and the functionality of masonry and a lot of other things too. We can be more efficient. We can learn to use a little less Portland cement. That's a huge pollutant because the production of Portland cement is a huge impact on our environment. And if there's ways we can use less of it because of better design, not to build the building we're building, but to have the same building or a better building and use less material, that's a good thing. There's a lot of ways we can take advantage of stuff, but we got to marry the computer age with the trades that have supported our living, our industries for centuries and centuries, and they can work together. Doesn't have to, you hear about, well, the brick and mortar is dead. Well, every time I hear that, it hurts me. I think, wait a minute, not so fast. But yeah, we can combine. They're working right now. They're building these brick that convert the energy of the heat into electric energy output. Charge your cell phone with your fire and charge your batteries in your house.
That's awesome.
And that's real technology. It's available today. I mean, they've got it. It's been developed. So
yeah, I feel like there's a ton of that. Like there's kinetic energy of people walking and all sorts of things. And with all that married together, we're just not gonna have to worry about energy a lot of times. If you
that'd be awesome. I mean,
yeah,
that would be change things. I mean, you look at history and how much that's affected the political and wars and different things like that. That tension, energy, and how to stay warm and how to move about. And if we can figure out more efficient ways, harnessing the sun's energy, harnessing the natural energy around us, we would change. And we need to, because it needs to happen. It can't happen soon enough. The size isn't getting any smaller, and there's more people. And it's either some really draconian things to get rid of the people, which I don't even want to start thinking about, or we find a way to feed and house and take care of the more people by being more efficient. The energy's there. The numbers are there. We just got to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be technology, right? And what's great about this show and others and just talking technology, I mean, you have places that can farm in one giant building enough that like acres and acres of farmland can't even keep up with. Come up with it, right? So there's like across the board, like you were saying, in 3D printing, you're going to be able to eventually roll in a 3D printer, 3D print an entire brick building. Doing all the things as efficiently as you were just saying, hopefully in the point where there's some bricks in there that capture power, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Let's do that whole thing. And then at the end, and we've talked on here as well and other people, having that sustainable society where we don't technically have to work and we get to do what we want to do because all of the things that we really, really need are provided for us with technology, which is really the utopian future that like Star Trek really is. Right, that's when we can start out going and exploring way beyond this. But I'm really excited that one, you seem very kind of environmentally conscious too, right? Especially as a Mason, I don't know how Masons fall into that, but you specifically that you're conscious about that, which is something we all need to be, right? And it's something we probably need to talk about more on this show specifically. Because there's a whole bunch of new technologies coming out that hopefully will make the world, not die.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you won't find me hugging a lot of trees, because I want to cut them down and burn them, but not all of them. I want to take the ones that fall down in the storm,
Sure.
the ones that die from disease.
Mhm.
A lot of those are ending up in the landfill. You know what I mean? And so if we could harness that, there's a ton of energy there. I mean, literally BTUs that we could harvest and use responsibly. And there's so many things we can do better at, and we will get better at. Um, Sometimes the way we frame the argument, and it seems like it's political. I know that's not fair and that's not right. There's We all have to look at ways that we can have a smaller footprint on this earth and leave it in a better than when we found it. And that's a challenge for every one of us. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter where you're from. As you think about that, that's a real challenge. And there's ways to do it. There's a lot of creative ways to do it, and some of them are actually even kind of fun, like building fires and cooking marshmallows.
And reusing the sun from years ago, like you were saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we do have to get going. Kofi, do you have any other questions or anything to add?
I do not.
Okay, well, I gotta say, David, it was super fun to talk to you. I learned a lot, and yeah, I mean, we got to get a pizza oven down here. We got a portable pizza oven. That's the important thing that I learned today was the fact that there's a portable pizza oven that you can roll up. No, everything was great, but thank you for being on the show again. What exactly what's the best place for people to reach you? Like if they've seen this and they want to know more, they want to talk to you about it. Is Instagram, Facebook, somewhere else?
First of all, let me say thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the discussion, and you can find me if you Google DK and Sons Masonry. You'll find me. Also, David Zeltwanger Masonry. Any of the social, I shouldn't say any, but the major Facebook. You can tell
you gotta
I'm
get
old.
on TikTok.
Yeah,
You gotta get on
I'm
TikTok.
not.
People
Yeah,
would
well,
love to see
there you go.
on TikTok.
Jeez. I thought I was doing pretty. I thought I was doing pretty good at Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. So that's where you can find me. We'll see about it. I got somebody keep bugging me about TikTok. Maybe you have to explore that a little bit too. So.
Well, thanks again for being on. But yeah, so anybody, if you have questions or you want to hire him or something, go there and you can do the thing. Yeah.
There you go.
So,
thank you.
Kofi, you want to tell us about you?
Oh, you can find me. Just find me on LinkedIn at Patrick Kofi Austin.
Yeah, you can hire you there too, right? For
yes,
all the stuff that you do. And I'm James Wolfgar, and you can find me almost every afternoon down here in Matchbox Maker of Space. Where am I right now? Yeah, he's in the media studio. I'm in the Maker Space. We're all in the same building, which is Matchbox Co-working Studio, and we're downtown Lafayette. We have all kinds of different ways of making things down here, and I love helping people make what you're into, right? And then also, if you know somebody who wants to be on the show or you think would be good on the show, this is more, I don't know, we've been doing it for almost a year now, actually a little over a year now, and I don't plan on stopping. So if you could just message me, my email, if you have any questions on anything, it's just james@mbx.studio. And with that, I will see you in 2 weeks for another Maker Monday. Thanks a lot for watching.